Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody. I'm Cris Bierrenbach. I'm along here with my friend and colleague Sam Spiegel. We're going to be discussing several aspects of the market, of the numismatic market across the globe, what's been happening here at Heritage over the last several months since we last met in September. But before we get started, I would like to start with a question to all of you that are watching, and please submit your commentary and answers to Tommy, who will send it up to the screen for us, and Sam and I will discuss it. So the question is, why does coin collecting remain popular after all these centuries? Are you worried about an aging demographic? And if so, please send your comments. So Sam, with that.
All right, yeah. So happy to be here. While everyone contemplates that question, I think we've got plenty of other material to cover. It's been a little while since we've had one of these. I checked yesterday, the last one was September 12th, so a few months. And since then, we finished out 2023 pretty strong with the November signature auction we had, the December Hong Kong auction, then the New York International sale, and the beginning of January. And in between all those signature auctions, we've also had numerous specialized and thematic showcase auctions.
Hard to keep count.
Yeah, it's always something new that's coming through here. So we can spend a little time going through that and sort of what we can glean about the state of the market based on those sales. And then we can also take this opportunity to go over some of our upcoming efforts and where we see the market going over the rest of the year.
Okay.
And before we jump into those auctions, I would like to report that I'm happy and proud to say that in 2023, we concluded 3 straight years of realizing over $100 million of World and Ancient Coins at auction, which I believe is a first for any World and Ancient Coin auction company anywhere in the world, which I think is a testament to the hard work that our team is putting in.
Absolutely. These numbers, looking back historically to where, when we started, even 10 years ago or 15 years ago when you started, I mean, we need to every now and then step back and take a look at the big picture of what the team and everybody that works actually everybody at Heritage for that matter, that we work along with in several different departments in the company that are alongside of us. But it's a great, I think it is a great scene for, great picture to show how strong and resilient the numismatic market continues to be as we continue to ride these cycles. And, the team that we have is growing. When 10 years ago, maybe we had about a quarter of the
something like that,
of the team members that we have now. So that's great to see. It's great to see that everybody has their work impact directly in the results of what we do, and therefore, so the last 3 years have been obviously tremendous for us.
Yeah, and I think to your point before we get into some specifics, but it's been a very steady march upward, which is a reflection of both the work that our team is doing, as we were saying, and the greater numismatic market.
Correct.
If you compare it to some of the other collectibles markets, and maybe I should have, or next time we can look at some other collectibles, but you look at, like, say, modern sports cards, which shot up and then plummeted back down, where things are selling for a 90% discount.
Yeah.
I think the numismatic market, especially for vintage coins, which is our bread and butter, is much more resilient.
Yeah, I think absolutely, and it goes back to many centuries that people have been collecting coins. What's really bring about sort of this softening of the cycles, where the cycles are not extreme and full of angles, but much more like easy slopes coming down, and there's resilience, there's depth, there's wholesale and dealer support, there's collectors are in it for the long run. So it's great to see how that all goes down in history.
Right. Okay. Well, should we get into some specifics?
Sure.
So going back a few months to the November auction, that was sort of a regular signature auction. We had a platinum session, but it was a relatively modest sale of 680 lots that realized 3.8 million. Overall, I'd say it was strong for what it was. We didn't have any major lots there, but there is something that we'll talk about in a moment. But for some of the more highlights there, like the top lot was that Brazilian coin, right? The 1730 400 raise. And you know Brazilian much better than me, but that is a very strong price for that.
That's probably the only area of the market that I actually know more than you about. But but actually, as a matter of fact, there's an interesting story with this coin I think I'll just share with everybody, which is, obviously an incredibly rare. I mean, it's a tiny coin. It's the size. I mean, this is the size
like a dime,
of.
Right?
Well, no, it's smaller than a dime. It's a 400 raise. It's the smaller denomination ever struck in gold. Obviously, it's in incredible condition. And the collector had consigned it. He was very reticent about consigning this item because he had paid what he thought was an amount that he would never recover. So,
and when did he pay for that?
He bought it in 2012, I want to say.
And that's when the Brazilian market was.
Yeah, that was pretty much riding probably a year before the peak of the Brazilian market. So he was afraid that he was going to lose. But at the end of the day, he was ready to part with the coin, so he consigned it in the auction. So long story short, it sold for 5 times his cost. With incredibly, spirited bidding, lots of bidders. There was actually 3 distinct bidders over 60,000 hammer on this coin. So it just shows that sort of the search and the focus for incredibly high quality items like this one, rare and particularly high quality is what is of significance here, continues to drive the market and continues to drive bidding.
Right. And I think the other point that we keep sort of reinforcing is how the market is really paying a premium for top quality, like top population.
Continues to be that way,
right.
yeah.
So Tommy, if you can pull up that 1714 guinea that I sent you as well, in MS65. This one, we had it in that November auction as well. MS65, fantastic condition, sold for 60,000. Can you scroll down on the page to the previous prices grid? Give that a sec. Yeah, there it is. You can see we had a 64 in August 2021 sell for less than half, 28,800.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the peak of the pandemic bubble for collectibles, August 21.
Yep.
And you can see a 1 grade point difference more than doubles the value for something like this.
Yeah.
Which I think is a huge, huge result. So I think that's more or less enough to say on the November auction for the regular signature portion. But what I really want to spend a little bit of time in is the other November signature auction, which was 3112, the Oto collection of physical Bitcoin. We talked briefly about this, I think, last time when we were still kind of in the early stages of cataloging it. But this was our first real foray into the physical cryptocurrency space, and it was...
Another foray it was, huh?
Yeah.
It was a big one.
Yeah, we had sold one physical cryptocurrency item, I think last August, but then this was the big one.
We went from 1 to 250.
Yeah. Exciting and educational for sure. And personally, I'm excited to continue down this path. As you said, there were 250 lots, and it added up to 200 unredeemed Bitcoin. So each one of those lots represented either 1 Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin. It has a code on the back, and you know better than anyone else the process to redeem it. But you peel it off.
Yeah, it's essentially it's a very well done, very well produced, and seamless process. It's essentially a very well designed sticker behind the
tamper evident.
Yeah, tamper evident. If you go back, it destroys itself essentially when you peel. But Tommy, if you go back to and show an image of the reverse there, so that when on that side of this coin, I mean, if you see it on the border there, there's a double border. There was actually, you can zoom out. That's actually a sticker there. So you have to be peel that off there, and behind that, protected by a, like I said, this, like you said, self-destructing sort of peeling paper. It's the best way I can describe it. And in there's a long Bitcoin key, which, I mean, anybody who's worked with crypto is familiar with. Is a long sort of the encrypted address of that Bitcoin, and you can obviously the user can at its, the owner, if it wants, can redeem that, and that becomes the virtual kind of coin, Bitcoin.
And then even still, even the redeemed Bitcoin has some collector value.
Yeah.
We haven't sold any of those. Everything we offered was unredeemed.
Yes, and it's interesting. We'll have a few more coming along the way. We have one. I know you're about to mention it. We have one in the weekly this week in our select auction, 2 of them, and there will continue to be some to show here and there as we go along. And I think, I think this has it's a very interesting connection between the numismatic world and sort of the crypto world, or the virtual world, I say, of currency, which is a step that clearly is underway, and this obviously bridges that situation, that moment, and it's very interesting because these are the first ones, like some of the first physical Bitcoins that were produced in 2013, I believe.
Yeah, these were 2013. Cassatius produced as early as 2011.
So really early, let's say, in the history of crypto. It was a time probably that only Bitcoin existed. It was the only crypto that existed at the time.
Yeah.
Now we all know there's hundreds of them, but so pay attention to those. They are interesting to note that they seem to be increasing in premium as we go along right now.
Well, I think,
and not only due to the variation in Bitcoin price has been quite aggressive in a few weeks, but we seem to be noticing some premiums and high demand for these.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think we learned is, we did a big outing. We offered 200 Bitcoin, which had a spot value of 6.9 million, and then the auction realized 7.2. Yeah. So it was 300,000, premium total.
We'll be formatting probably the future auctions slightly
curating
different.
It a little more.
Yeah, making probably a little smaller.
It was maybe a lot for the market to absorb at once, because it's still in its early stages. Like, people need to educate themselves, and we wrote a long paper on the history of Bitcoin and where these fit into that larger scheme of, monetary history, really. And I think this auction was very important, not for us and for the wider market for physical cryptocurrency, to bring in a lot of new collectors, at least for awareness. The ones we offered were 1.5 Bitcoins, which granted has a pretty high barrier to entry. Like, Bitcoin just crossed 50,000, so at a minimum you need to pay 25,000 for a half Bitcoin. Yeah. But there's other issues where you can get them for 1/10 of a Bitcoin or 100th of a Bitcoin, or even the redeemed ones.
I'm pretty certain we'll be seeing those in our auctions in the near future as we continue to develop and explore this very interesting and dynamic new market. We love to see it. I mean, it's
there was a clear progression on grade as well. Like the MS-68s, you just had one up. They were selling for like a 10 to 25% premium. Yes. Whereas when you got down to the 65, 66s, those were, more or less at the spot price. Yeah. And so, I think regardless of your personal feelings on, physical Bitcoin or Bitcoin in general,
as a whole,
there's no denying that this is an important part of monetary history. And I think you'd agree that a big part of our philosophy here at Heritage is like, don't be judgmental for what people collect, right? We got some flack from more traditional-minded collectors on, this kind of thing, including some of our colleagues, perhaps, who didn't believe that these had a premium. But we shouldn't judge what people want to collect, right? There's clearly a market for it, and if we can make the financing, like the financials work to be able to offer these, which we have been able to figure out, we'll continue to do so.
Absolutely.
Should we move on to December Hong Kong, back to more traditional coins?
Less, absolutely, yes.
All right. So December Hong Kong, that it was a strong auction. I think it did show that the market had declined somewhat.
Are we moving to the December? Here we
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
Oh,
Thanks, Tommy. It was still holding steady. One of the bellwethers for the top end of the market, I think, is the long whiskered dragon dollar.
Classic,
Right.
classic rare pattern.
And we had, I think it was the highest graded example we've ever offered, a 64 plus. So if you can pull up lot 34012, you'll see that, once that page loads, you'll see that we sold this specimen 64 plus for 630,000. There we go. And that itself was a decline from 1.2 million in December 2021. So it seems like the market peaked, as I think we said last time, December 21 to June 22 or so. That kind of 6-month period was the most recent peak for that market. The other thing I think worth pointing out about this, and I think we mentioned it last time, NGC calls this a specimen. The one we sold in December of 2021 for 1.2 million, they called a proof. I've also seen it called a mint state. It's all the same. Like, this is a pattern issue. And then that's the one from this past June that Tommy's showing in the previous prices grid, where we had a 63 sell for 690,000. So a 63 at 690 in June to a 64 plus to 630 in December. It's still very strong though compared to this coin, which was selling for 100,000 a few years.
Yeah. If
10 years
you
ago.
widen, if you broaden your timeline, and if you're looking at the bigger picture, you see that obviously there's variations, and there were very aggressive prices that we saw, particularly during the pandemic. And obviously this is a correction, but if we look, like you said, if you look 10, 20 years ago, then
you can see the market.
The increase in price is clear.
Yeah. And I think a good example of that, I pulled out the Italian pattern junk dollar that we had in this auction that sold for 312,000. Thanks, Tommy. So really cool coin. I love this series.
This design,
there's, I don't know how many, there's half a dozen, different, or maybe more if you do the
different
minor
producers
varieties.
that were making in different countries. There's a German,
Austrian, Italian, British, American. Really, interesting series. This one happens to be the Italian issue that realized 312 for a specimen 62. If you look back to March 2015, where again, as you were saying, if you broaden your time horizons, you can see, can you pull up that result, Tommy? Another auction house had sold the specimen 63 for 100,000 hammer. So a higher grade coin selling for about a third of the price. So what I think it shows is that the fact that a lower grade example sold for 3 times as much in less than 10 years, I mean, in terms of pure financial returns, that's a pretty good ROI. Yeah, there we go. So the specimen 63 that sold for 100,000 by Stacks in March 2015. And so, in that 9-year period, the market's changed significantly, even if it's come down somewhat, from the pandemic peak. Should we talk about the Kuping tail?
Sure.
Yeah. So the other one that I'd sent you, Tommy, for that December auction is the Kuping tail, this gold coin. 216,000. It's a great type.
Another great type, classic dragon. It is the year of the dragon. Just new year just started. So this is a classic coin, beautiful design.
Yeah. Can you scroll down, Tommy? This is an MS61. You scroll down to the previous prices grid. Give it a second to load. You can see a 62. So 1 point higher, sold 5 years earlier for 132,000. So again, this is a lower grade example selling for nearly double, in just 5 years' time, which is a huge shift in the market upward. So do you want to talk about sort of how it impacts people in terms of buying and selling, the more recent downturn versus the broader time horizon?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think the main thing is collectors, as they developed their collecting habits, you do it, I mean, most of us, particularly when you talk about advanced collectors, it's a lifetime commitment, right? I mean, there are times in your life where you're more active, there are times in your life that you're less active, but the longer perspective that you have, the longer term that you have for your collecting activities, essentially the best you will be at the end when you get there, right? I mean, there's no, we always tried to believe that any coin collection is, there's actually a possibility of completing the collection, where we all know that at the end of the day, coin collecting is an infinite activity, and or investment, or and you do it throughout your life. And I think most buyers that fit that category, they sort of behave, they just buy through the cycles. They collect through the cycles, may they be macroeconomic cycles, or particularly cycles in the market where there are increasing prices like we saw in 2021. Most collectors tend to just continue with their activity. They might tune it down a little bit, but people who, and we know this very well, that timing the market is essentially an impossibility. We get asked this question probably almost on a daily basis, which is, is it a good time to sell right now? And my answer tends to be the same, which is, if you're done collecting, that's the right time to sell. I mean, if you have no use, if you have duplicates, or if you think the timing is good because your coins are worth much more now, that's your decision to make. And once the decision is made, we're obviously will work to find the widest market and to maximize the value of each individual item in that collection. But the answer that one asks himself is, am I done collecting for whatever reason? And that is the timing, right? It's very difficult to say, I'm going to wait to see if the market comes up, or I'm going to wait to buy when the market comes down. I mean, those pauses don't make sense to me, at least in the collecting habit. We just, I keep, the things that I collect, I buy constantly and frequently.
Right.
So,
most collectors are always buying and selling out of their collection as they work on curating.
Exactly. That's a great point. I mean, that's the other thing too. Collections in this, as people advance, they tend to be dynamic. They're not accumulations, and it might be that you feel the time is right. And we've worked with many clients that have done this, that if they think that they've made an investment, let's say they bought a group of Chinese coins in 2005, and then in 2010 they realized that the financial result of selling those coins is going to be so great that they can't help themselves but put them up for sale. That's valid too. So that doesn't mean that the coins couldn't go higher later, or we really don't know what's going to happen. That's the true and only answer to that question. We do think that like we said before, the market is resilient on the long run, but over time, obviously, it's like this. It's up and down. It goes up, goes down.
The Chinese market peaked in around 2011 previously.
One of the peaks.
Yeah, that was one peak. Yeah. And then it went down.
It did. Yeah.
And then it sort of slowly recovered and then shot back up in 2021, 2022. Yeah. And it's come down a little bit since then, but...
And also, I think it's important. I think, Sam, you and I agree with this, like we do most things, but we measure sort of our best barometer of the market it cannot be prices, right? Because prices in an auction, the final price of an item is a result of many things that happen throughout that auction as that auction takes place. And it's such a chaotic number of things that happen that you can't really, it's never apples to apples to compare.
Yeah, and that's why you have to take it with a grain of salt when we talk about these individual results. Like we look at, that Kuping tail for a 61 selling for 200 something thousand. Like someone could have, overslept and missed the auction and it would have gone a couple increments higher or a couple increments lower. They, had a bad day or something. So that's why, we can look at those results to tease apart some ideas of the market, but I look more holistically at the overall auction, number of bidders, the
number of action per lot. I mean, and essentially with us, I think it gets to. I always think of that guy, the guys reading like the Matrix green rolling things. Like we can now basically, once the auction starts and we can see the activity happening. And we can read that and see, and we know that the auction is going to be essentially a success. It's a good measure. That's a better measure of the market, sort of how enthusiastic the bidding activity is and the number of bidders. And we look at those things, and sort of price is just a result of, one just wanting a little more than the other, than the next, but not really significant. I mean, there are points that we might discuss, but they don't have greater significance on the general dynamics of the market. I guess.
Some things will go up, some things will go high, some things will go low. It kind of evens out though, and you can kind of tease apart from that the trend line. So I guess with that, we can move on. Or actually, one final thing I'll say on the December Hong Kong auction is we had a really exciting group of Chinese cash and Sicey.
That's true.
We had this collection. We had a standalone session and catalog for it. And I didn't give any lots to pull up, unfortunately, Tommy, but I think that's worth pointing out on sort of broadening sort of our horizon of what we handle as Chinese coins.
Correct.
Because for the longest time, it was like...
We sort of avoided them because we didn't have the expertise and the capacity to present these coins, but now we do.
Yeah, I mean, we would only offer Chinese coins 1890 to present, pretty much.
Correct.
And now we've opened up 2,000 years of Chinese coinage history beyond that, relying on the grading services. There's a service in China called Gongbo that we can, certify and vet and grade and authenticate, attribute all that important material. And we've handled some of that material in the past, but we had, a critical mass for
sure.
A collection.
We had a really wonderful collection that
one of our colleagues brought in, and I'm excited for that. I know next to nothing about that material.
Yeah, me neither.
But I love that we're sort of not sticking to just our comfort zone.
Yes, and it's such a fun area because you have all kinds of different shapes and sizes, and it surely opens up, and we hope to open up other other areas that we're not particularly active. I mean, there's like things like treasure coins that we've had very successful. We're about to have a very important showcase
of shipwreck and treasure, Islamic coins. That's one of the, and we can talk about the showcases a little more later. But that's one of the benefits of the showcase auctions, where we can kind of try and move into an area where we maybe don't have much traction or knowledge or whatever, and just force ourselves to move outside of our comfort zone into other areas of numismatics.
Fun and challenges. Fun challenges. Yeah. Should we talk about one of our favorite weeks of the year?
The New York International, the longest week of the year.
Certainly the longest, but also one of the most, satisfying.
Right. It's getting to see our friends from all over the world, and there's always something to do that week. It's busy from sun up to sundown and beyond. So this is traditionally our biggest auction of the year. People, like the venue of the New York International to consign to. Though I personally don't see much difference in terms of the price realizations, but I think,
perhaps in the very, very top end, maybe I would say over, things over 250,000 individually. But even then, I'm not sure.
Right, and I think that's a good point for that top lot, the petition crown that you have at the top of the screen there, because the two bidders on that were both phone bidders above a point, and viewing the coins in person has a lot of value, but
they never saw it. There was plenty satisfied
They
with.
weren't at the show.
Right.
You know, we do a lot doing at our office. We can
Right.
make arrangements at the branch offices as well, but you know, they weren't at the show to.
We didn't think a few years ago that actually people would buy coins that are close to $1 million sight unseen.
Mm-hmm.
We always thought that at this level, you know, we used to think that online venues would work well up to certain points.
Yeah.
And you know, COVID actually proved this, that actually there's no limit to what you can do sight unseen. You know, always refer back to Paramount collection that we sold during COVID without a single person lot viewing. And of course it was, you know, broke all the records that it did. So.
Yeah.
But this, you know, Petition Crown, beautiful coin.
Yeah, historic. It's considered, you know, the most important British crown or British silver coin. There's a great story behind it where Thomas Simon created this coin to appeal to Charles II to become the great engraver, the engraver for the reign of Charles II. And that's why it's called the Petition Crown, because this is his petition to the king. And it's on its own level. There's not that many of these known. And the last one that came up for auction, I think I sent you the link, Tommy, that sold in another auction last August for a
Significantly lower grade, if I remember.
specimen 45 for 190,000. Again, you know, NGC called it mint state, PCGS called it specimen. It's the same thing.
Same thing, same coin, same thing.
So 190,000, specimen 45. That's sort of our price, like our point to go off.
Yeah,
when
we
come
thought
up.
something. I think our estimate was 300,000 to 500,000.
400,000 to 500,000.
400,000 to 500,000.
Yeah, opening at 200,000. So I think that underscores the importance of using a conservative estimate and starting bid on it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is critical for a coin like this. Actually, for a coin like this, I mean, and as any or most coins, for the most part, you could start this at $1. It would be the same result. But you know, to give some of our viewers some guidance, that coins at this level, we try to produce, of course, you know, refer to comparables and other coins like the result that you just mentioned, and give some guidance based on that. But we're really, at the end of the day, we really don't know.
Right.
What this is going to bring, or what that's worth at that moment. So, you know, as auctioneers, our jobs essentially for our consigners is to make sure that the estimates are conservative enough and the starting bids are sort of like, you know, a total no-brainer for anyone out there that would bid that amount. And that would, you know, that average, you know, as we know well, it translates into lots of bidder engagement,
Right.
You know, with outbid notices going into their phones, with the emails. I mean, and then the whole marketing machine of the auction machine of Heritage goes into effect. So
Yeah, and I think if we had it sold for 800,000 hammer. If we had
Right.
estimated it at 800,000 and opened it at 400,000, I'm not sure we would have seen the same result. Maybe.
yeah, no, I totally agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I like the idea of people getting involved early at the
Yeah.
auction. As you said, when it's a no-brainer, 200,000, we can explain it. You know, we're looking at this result for 190. We think it's probably worth at least double that, a little more than double that, and get people involved, get the outbid notices.
Yeah.
And for something like this, as you were saying, like it's in the most high-profile auction at the most high-profile event. We advertised it for months ahead of time. There's no way it wasn't going to reach
Thousands of page views
Yeah,
in the
reach the
weeks.
audience.
Yeah, in the weeks leading up to the sale. I mean, it's really important. You know, when we talk about estimates or opening bids or even reserves, I mean, it's very clear to us. I've done it for so long that they can only hurt. The best case scenario is that you know they don't cause any harm, essentially, for the result of an individual lot. But for the most part, they act as ceilings instead of, you know, starting bids. They act as maximum bids instead of
Right.
starting bids. Things like that, and this is very clear. And it's you know, we've done the right job. You know, for us, our auctions essentially have sell-throughs that are in the 98% or higher level.
Yeah.
So it's clear that our audience has our audience of collectors and partners that are out there giving us, you know, trusting us with their coins, have understood this lesson, and they see that really that's the best strategy, auction strategy to go with. So
imagine if it had been reserved at 800,000, it wouldn't have sold, and then the coin would have had that, ceiling that it's not worth that.
And a big stain on its history. It's important that big coins like this, when they come to the market, that you see all the bidding activity and the love and passion instead of, a best case scenario that you just described. Maybe I would say probably we would have a 20% chance of getting a single bid, and it's selling for that price. So best case scenario, it's the same
right, and that's
result.
Unlikely, I think, because when you have
20%.
more bidding activity, the bidders have confidence that there's someone else bidding on it, so someone else thinks it's worth that level.
Yeah, it's actual support. That's true.
And I think the final point I'll make on that is that while there's no direct comparables to compare it to, it did set a world record for most expensive British coin to ever sell, which I think counts for something.
Silver coin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
correct.
For 960,000, most expensive British silver coin.
And well deserved.
Yeah. I mean, what else would it be?
What a gorgeous. Right. I mean, this is a coin that's 17th century, just a gorgeous bust and strike, and sort of set the tone for what was to become the beautiful series that followed. In the English series that we see for things like the crowns and the 5 guineas. This is sort of very iconic, and we were honored and very happy to have it brought this. I mean, by the way, this coin was put aside 50 years ago before it came to the market, so it's very fresh to the market. I'm sure it's going to be the centerpiece in a very advanced new collection. So congratulations to the new owner.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue, sticking with British, where that market has been so resilient. It went up significantly. It's a very old coin market, right? There's collections going back literally centuries.
Yes.
Some of the firms in London have been around for multiples longer than Heritage has been around, or that even our founders have been alive.
We recently saw a library that had catalogs dating back to the 17th century,
something like that. Yeah. And this auction in January that we had was one of the strongest auction offerings of British coins we've ever had, and despite all the great material coming out, the market keeps marching onward.
Yeah.
So if you can bring up that 1656 broad, this is a great bellwether.
Another classic, beautiful.
Also from the mid 17th century,
Yes.
roughly the same time period as the Petition Crown. It's a type that comes up regularly, but I'm amazed that the price keeps going up as much as it is. So scroll down to the previous prices grid, Tommy.
This is, if I remember this, if I think about it, it was a $10,000 to $20,000 item.
15 years ago,
tells me
you can see that it's resilient relative to the COVID bubble that we saw, like for sports cards or comics or trading cards or whatever it may be. It didn't peak there, right? It keeps going up, where you can see an identical grade sold in January of 2022, which many would consider like the peak of that.
It's around the peak for sure,
It sold for $108,000, and this one sold for $138,000.
Yeah.
So an increase of $30,000 in the span of 2 years.
I mean, you could see, just to make a quick comment, Sam, about this. I mean, there's also, we see one of the trends that we see in the market, I think it's important to note at this point, is there's a lot of folks coming into the new collectors that come into essentially hunting trophies, right? It's when I started, you would start with the cheap coins and you buy a few nickels, and then maybe you buy a few silver coins, and you there was a process to it, right?
And
you kind of leveled up.
Sort of the confines.
Yes, and then you sort of when you had a little more money, then you leveled up, and then they continue to go that way, and you progress in that manner. And now that we see a lot of folks coming in, and maybe this could be. We wouldn't be surprised. What I'm saying is, we wouldn't be surprised nowadays if this was someone's first coin that they ever purchased for their auction.
World coin.
Or first world coin, or first British coin.
Right.
And because this is obviously a very iconic, this Cromwell pattern, in gold, and you know, there's others like that. I mean, the Gothic crown, of course, is a good example. A triple unites, 5 guineas. Of course, the petition crown that we just shown, of course, is an ultimate trophy. But I see sort of, it's a little bit beyond the type coins, right? Because the collecting seems to be going from people building date runs to people collecting type to people collecting especially nice type, and now to collecting trophies. You know, it seems like the quantity of coins in their collections are getting smaller, but the average ticket value may be getting higher. I mean, in one aspect of the market, anyways.
And that goes back to something we were saying earlier about how condition conscious collectors are now, where they want those trophies. Like the next coin that I sent you was that 1868 100 francs, Tommy, that you can pull up, where again you can see this 65 sold for 40,800. A huge price for this coin, which it's a scarcer type, but if you wait for that previous prices grid to load, you'll see that, you know, in 62, 63, it's not a type that sells for a huge premium.
Not particularly, no.
Yeah, like this sort of 100 francs, if it was a circulated coin, you would be buying it probably for a function of the bullion price.
Yeah, maybe a little bit over melt, yeah.
Yeah, but
correct.
You would consider the melt value if it was circulated. But for a 65, it sells for 40,000.
Yes.
And I think...
Yeah, I mean, this shows sort of, I think, just sorry to interrupt, Sam, but it shows a little bit of the dynamics that are taking place in Europe. I think it's interesting to note because, you know, in Europe, particularly, you know, in countries like Germany, for example, France, where you have more traditional ways of collecting, let me put it that way, they tend to be more resistant to change, and of course, the advent of grading is now finally becoming more and more important. And I think we see this, one of the ways and one of the consequences or the results of this fact is that prices for European coins in condition rarity levels, because these coins, they have enough critical mass in the pop reports to people to see where the condition rarities are, and then the prices are becoming geometrically higher, and this is obviously something that we've seen before. It's a process that we've seen before, and it's exactly what the advent of third-party grading does. So anyways, I thought it was...
Yeah. And that leads into that final world coin that I want to pull up from this auction, which is that 1925 Swiss 100 francs in 67, which is the single highest graded coin. But this is a popular type, but it's not rare.
Not a rare coin. I mean, I would guess that we've sold we sold dozens of this coin, maybe 100 in the last 10 years.
Something like that, yeah. I looked at the numbers yesterday. Between NGC and PCGS, in grades 65 or 66, there's over 150 coins graded. And I'm sure there's tons more raw in Switzerland.
Yeah.
It's a great type coin. It was consistent at 20, 25,000 for 65, 66.
If you want to get a big Swiss gold coin, I mean, essentially this is it of the 20th century anyways. You can buy early things, but this is essentially it for the modern times.
Right. But again, that one grade point difference, going to a 67 makes this a $56,000 coin.
No question.
It's the single finest graded.
We're seeing this around the world, by the way. We've seen this, for example, with things like Peruvian 100 soles, which, when I was growing into this market, were absolutely bullion coins.
Yeah, Mexican 50 pesos.
Nobody ever looked at condition. I mean, maybe some collectors like, I want a nice one.
Right.
That's as far as
pay
you
a little
went.
Premium for
yeah,
that.
you would pay, 10% over if they were incredible, gems. But now, and we have them frequently in auctions. They're absolutely not rare coins by any event. But what we're now able to find out, because there was critical mass, there's critical population numbers in the grading services, to find out by date where the condition rarities exist. And this is how the market tends to evolve for the right reasons, because we all know the rarity is mostly on the condition,
right?
And particularly when we talk about coins of this type and most coins.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that the condition rarities are more now than they were back then, because if they were traded as bullion coins, they get dinged up and rag marks,
Yeah.
all of that. So the survival rate for that really top end quality-wise today is much less.
Yeah.
But we've talked a lot about world coins, and I think we should spend a moment on some ancients.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Wow.
Philip II Stater.
What a way to start.
So this is more special than your typical Philip II Stater because it's a posthumous issue, meaning it was struck after his death, and that portrait on the obverse is generally considered to be a portrait bearing the features of Alexander the Great. So it's collected as a different type than sort of your run-of-the-mill Philip II Stater, which typically sells for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 or thereabouts. This one with that portrait of Philip II, or portrait of Alexander the Great, sorry, sold for $49,200, and it's always been a highly collectible type. 10 years ago when I was starting, if a Philip Stater was selling for $4,000, this one would sell for $15,000 or $20,000. But you can see it's come up quite a bit since then. The point I want to make here is if you scroll down to that previous prices grid, Tommy, you'll see in January of 2023, you'll see a Choice Mint State Star sell for $43,200.
Is that as high as it gets?
It goes to Gem Mint State Star.
Oh, there you
We've
go.
handled like half a dozen Gem Mint State Stars in my entire career here.
All right.
But it's essentially as good as it gets. So typically a star gets a big premium, right? And between a Choice Mint State and a Choice Mint State Star,
It's a big jump. Yeah.
you would almost always choose the Choice Mint State Star.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that this one that we sold 1 year later without the star wound up selling for, $8,000 more than the one last year. And I think what this highlights is the importance of strike and surface grades.
Yeah.
So that Choice MS Star that we sold last January,
Slightly off.
it was strike 5 out of 5, surface 4 out of 5.
Okay.
So even if it had, this exceptional eye appeal and, warranted the star, you can see on the
It's
cheek
done the
there.
reverse, yeah.
On the reverse,
cheek,
on the cheek, there's a little bit of marks, and they got, that 4 out of 5. And, I think that's a fair grade for it. But it's almost like getting that perfect 5 and 5 gives it a similar premium to what the star gives it.
Yeah.
If it's star and 5 of 5, then it, it's all roses. But I'm seeing collectors pay a big premium for that 5 and 5, almost as much as they might pay for the star. And in this case, the collector
Both.
wanted the 5 and 5.
Really gorgeous coin.
Yeah.
Is that so? That's 2 horses. So is that called a biga?
A biga.
There you go.
And underneath it says Philippoi, which means of Philip. Like this is a coin of Philip. It's come a long way over the years. As I was mentioning years ago when I started, it was a much less valuable coin. So in August 2015, if you pull up that result, $25,000 for a similarly graded coin. If you could click the second set of images for the slab, Tommy, you'll see this was also Choice MS 5 of 5, 5 of 5, fine style, sold for half of what the one did, last month. Now, I don't want to give the impression that everything is going up. There are some areas of weakness in the market, and one place I'm seeing a little bit of softness is Cris Staters.
Okay.
Cris is, these are the world's first gold coins. He introduced the world's first bimetallic standard, taking off the electrum coinage. And this was a Choice MS 5 and 5 that sold for $60,000. And it was a little bit softer than where I would have expected, I think, compared to last April. So if you scroll down again, you'll see we had a similarly graded coin sell for $84,000. Yeah, that top one there in May of 2023, Choice MS 5 and 5 sold for $84,000. This was a market that got very popular very quickly with a lot of U.S. coin collectors coming in. It was marketed.
Great story.
Yeah, great story, world's first gold coin. And then it went up, but now it's sort of coming back down to its reasonable levels. I think this result also underscores the importance of looking at the coin itself and not
Yeah.
just the grade. You know, ancient coins are much less fungible than modern coins,
Yes.
right? Like you can't interchange
Each
them.
one is very unique on its own.
As a hammered coin.
Yeah, of course,
Each
yes.
one is unique.
Absolutely.
And so on this particular one, where you have that video Tommy's showing, it has a 5 out of 5 because it is perfectly centered, but it's still nonetheless somewhat weakly struck. Like if you look at the head of the lion, which is on the left side of the coin, you know, there's no definition to the mane, right? Like it's just sort of flat there. And that's just because it is somewhat weakly struck. So I agree with NGC's grade that it's as well centered as could be. It got 5 out of 5 for strike, but
Sure.
nonetheless, the eye appeal I don't think was quite as nice as the one that we sold last April or May.
For this coin, it's the best that it could be for this one.
Yeah. So, there's a little bit of softness there. I think the market will recover. There were a lot of these coming out for a
Yes.
while because there were so many collectors and the market had come up.
Yeah.
So I think it'll recover or get back to those levels at some point because it's a story that is collected by people all over the world.
Very popular
yeah.
type, very widely collected, and it's really a cool item. I mean, is it 2,500 years old or thereabouts? 26?
Yeah, about the mid 6th century BC.
Yeah, so it's just, that's what started it all for us.
Yeah. I think it's worth pointing out sort of some more accessible coins. You know, we're talking about, 5 and 6 figure coins, which I know most people don't collect. They're interesting to illustrate kind of the wider trends in the market, but
Something around the $3,000 level.
yeah. So if we look at the signature auction, which was held the week after the New York International, 3114, I'm seeing a lot of strength in British India, like even on lower value, like silver and gold especially. So like the 1862 moher that we had, which, it used to be a $2,000 or $3,000 coin, $2,500, $3,000.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see that in the previous prices grid. This one though sold for $6,600 in a 62. And I think there's a lot of interest in this coming from India and collectors of the British Empire. It touches a lot of different groups.
It has always been a steady market. It's a very interesting market. It's always been, strong, developing, sometimes slower, sometimes faster. But now, it may be India's turn to be the next, sort of booming area of numismatics. It might be. I mean, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not as wide. British India in particular, it's not as diverse as it could be. But certainly, the items that we see are getting a lot of attention.
The other issue that goes along with India is there are some import-export restrictions there.
That's true.
So
that affects.
in India, you cannot export any coins over 100 years old unless you get an export license or something like that, which, as I understand it, is very difficult to get. So the material that exists on the market that we handle is
what's
outside.
been out of that country, yeah.
And so there is probably a pretty big discrepancy between the market internally in India and externally, which makes this much more collectible because there isn't as ready of a supply of it to the wider market.
Good point.
How are we doing on time? Should we go on to showcase auctions?
How are we doing on time? Getting there?
Yeah.
Tommy, do we have any questions or anything at this point? Any commentary to pass along? We coming up to the hour? No?
Okay. Well, hello.
Hello from Tokyo. Hi.
So let's talk about showcase auctions because we've spent a lot of time on the signature auctions, but going back to those sort of more accessible collector quality coins.
Yeah.
I love the showcase auctions that we've been putting together.
Same.
And to give some idea to the viewers on how far we've come in that respect, in 2019, 20, 21, we were doing a little more than a dozen showcase auctions a year, about one a month, maybe two a month.
When they came along.
Yeah, when there was a special collection or something like that. In 2022, it went up to 27 auctions. But then last year, it shot up to 61 showcase auctions, more than one a week. And these are all specialized thematic sales. Sometimes they're single owner, but what we started doing last year was more multi-consigner, like with our Spotlight series of auctions. So, ending this coming weekend, we have Spotlight Great Britain, where we probably sell more British coins than any other company in the world, including the British companies. And so we get so much of that where there's some great material, but we don't have a way to put it in the signature auctions because we have value thresholds there.
Yeah, and not only that, it just targets the audience so well that people. I think the broadest field of collecting within coins, you could say, is by country.
Yeah, right.
So therefore, if all of our signature sales are A through Z, so if you're buying Mexican coins, you have to wait, but for A through M to go by, and there's might be hundreds or if not thousands of lots before. And these things, when it allows us to sort of narrow the market to people's interest and really target, and it makes, I think, for the bidding experience, it's not only great for consigners, I think it's also great for bidders that they can focus and we have little doubt that results in, at the end of the day, a higher price is realized to have these things formatted this way.
Yeah, a high-end collector or a serious collector of any series, or even a not-so-serious collector, is going to be as interested in a $5,000 coin as a $500 coin if it fits what they're
missing in
at
their collection. They're just as important.
Like in British, you could have the single finest graded Victoria sixpence for a particular year, and that's still only worth a few $100s.
Sure.
Right? But a collector of British coins is going to want something like that. And so we can put all of that in one venue and make it more convenient for bidders, as you said, and reach critical mass. And honestly, we're increasingly seeing consigners specifically ask us to put their material in these showcase auctions. Even material that would otherwise qualify for a signature or even platinum session auction, because they see what we're seeing as well.
Less competition for the items, more. I think the targeting is really has proven to be a critical thing here. And I think I'll make one quick comment: is that anybody out there, if you're a collector or if you're a dealer that has inventory, or if you're a dealer that bought a collection, or you can essentially build your own showcase sale. Our starting minimums are probably about 100,000 per sale. We don't like these sales to have more than 300 or so lots.
So we have it. When we have more than that, we've split it over 2 days. But we have ending tonight actually is the Egyptian auction, which was this great collection of Egyptian coins, running the gambit from $100 to $5,000. About 600 lots or so, and then we split it over 2 days.
Yes, we can. I mean, we can. Well, I guess what I should have said is about 300 lots per session.
Yeah.
But you can build your own. It really, really works well if your collection is that $100,000 to $500,000 range. It's your own dedicated event. We'll put banners for you that are exclusive. We'll send opening announcements that are targeted. All the marketing is really targeted to that type collector. So if we talk about British coins, it's the British coin collectors. If it is, here's a list of a few that Tom is showing. There's the Egyptian one. We have Great Britain closing
America
next, and then Latin America, which is one that's becoming a fixture in our catalog. We have the Modern Monthly. We have a Brazilian showcase that's also opening, and a Spotlight there. What's the Macedonian Kingdom?
Yeah.
Okay, Macedonian Kingdom, and then. We like to, the viewer can go through the schedule there that Tommy was looking, and we have some of these up in the schedule going as far as almost 12 months in the future.
We build sort of 6 months in advance. Some of them that are fixtures, like you said, Latin America or Mexico or Great Britain, that we have every quarter. I mean,
so this is rolling. It's sort of like rolling consignment deadlines, and I think this is another thing that's so great for the consigners, that you have all these deadlines. You can have your coins in one of these showcases if they fit, or build your own, pretty much in sort of a much quicker process than traditional sort of signature consignment processes.
Yes, and we're starting to see the wider market follow this suit a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there's some auctions that'll have Islamic auctions, or the Hong Kong auctions that some other companies have of Chinese coins that are specific to a particular country or region or theme. I think before long we'll see other companies following suit and having more of these thematic auctions, but So far, it's been pretty limited in the market, but I think it's just a matter of time before everyone else recognizes that this is the way that things are going, where we want to make things easier for bidders. Like we want to make it easy to do business with us. So if you collect British coins, we don't want you having to look at like half a dozen different auctions for your British coins. We want to make it easy to look at just the one auction of British coins. I mean, we'll have stuff in other venues, but
Before we go, why does coin collecting continue to be a very popular, if not the most popular? I mean, I would say it's probably the most popular area. But before there's a message about our Japan office, congratulations on the opening of Japan office. We'll be really grateful if you tell us what you think about the Japanese market. Oh, great. We were just talking, Mark. Perfect question, because we were just talking about the Japanese market right before we started this conversation. And we're very, very excited and very happy to be in Tokyo and in Japan. We've been going to Japan, Sam and I, for many years. It's one of our favorite places in the world. We have great friends, great clients. We do a lot of business already, and now with our position there, we're going to be able to do much more. Maya Matsumoto, our director, who's already there. We have our office already, location established. It's going to be a couple of months before we're open, but
we have a temporary office location now while we work on the build out for the full office in April, May. Sometime this spring we're hoping to open, but
we'll make an announcement soon, hopefully.
Yeah, we're already meeting with clients and assisting and able to provide much better customer service to our clients in Japanese. The Japanese market, to the question, there's such a rich history of collecting in Japan, going back decades and decades. There's some old collections there that have been put together by some of the big dealers in Japan who are good friends of ours and have been in business for, decades or half a century or more. And going to one of your earlier points, there seems to be a lot of trophy hunters there, right? You have a lot of collectors of, big important type coins. So like the Lady in the Clouds or the 1925 francs. Or British 5 guineas or 5 pounds.
Big European
gold coins,
type coins, German type coins, French type coins, other parts of the world. They've quite expanded into many areas. We'll be in Japan for the TICC show. Whoever sent us the message, if you want to come and see us, say hello. We'll be there. It's late April. Is it early May this year? No, it's late April this year, and then Central States is the following week in May.
Right.
So remember, this year, thankfully, that doesn't conflict, so we'll be able to be at both.
And fun fact about the Japan market, actually. So in terms of our buyers around the world, Japan, at least for coins, Japan is the third most important market for us.
Yeah.
So we sell the most to the United States, of course, then to China through the Hong Kong office and those auctions there, then to Japan. I mean, they do a tremendous amount of business with us collectors in Japan with buying world coins, and so it was the most logical next step for us to open internationally.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do that, opening an office there for a while, so we're glad we're in that. We're in the final stages. So I think coin collecting continues to be a popular collecting habit. I think the main reason for that is that really coins, when you think about it, from a collecting perspective, it encompasses everything, right? It encompasses history, artistry, economic development, cultures of a people over time. I mean, it describes sort of history the best way, really. If you learn about coins, you learn by history, by osmosis, essentially. You can't help it. We see a lot of younger kids dabbling with coins and on Instagram accounts and TikTok accounts and trading coins and doing business and showing up at coin shows, showing up at seminars, showing up at our offices here, and I think there's a very capable, dynamic, and smart demographic coming up, and I think we'll continue to see coins being collected for the next 2,500 years.
Yeah. You know, when I started in this business, 10 plus years ago, my biggest concern wasn't an aging collector base, it was an aging dealer base. Because there was sort of this generation of coin dealers that grew up in the 80s that were starting to age out of the business.
Yeah.
And I was sort of concerned that if you don't have dealers to service collectors, that the collectors aren't going to collect, right? Like our biggest competition in this business is people just choosing not to collect coins.
That's true.
They can collect something else or do something else with their money. But as you were saying, there is this really dynamic, intelligent, robust, younger generation of, dealers who's still in high school and college, or just out of college, who are dealing
They
on their
learn
own
very
significant
quickly,
volume.
and move up, sort of level up in their business quickly. I mean, they're doing deals that I wasn't doing until I was much older, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's great to see. We participate and we do a lot with young numismatists. I think we're in the right direction.
A piece of advice that one of my early mentors in this business gave me was the perspective that we love having, it's an old-fashioned term, but vest pocket dealers, like smaller dealers, come into the business. We want as many of those dealers to come in as possible because even though they might be seen as competition on some level, every new dealer brings in new collectors as well. And that sort of rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah, it's been many years that we care here at Heritage, particularly in the coin departments. We care more about the size of the pie than particularly our slice of the pie.
Exactly.
Because that is critical, and that's how we all do well and survive in the long term. So.
Yeah. Well,
with that,
I think
we already went over a little bit. Tommy, did we go over too long?
Yeah. Hello from the UK. Hello.
Hello, UK. We were just at the UK this weekend.
Yeah, for the opening of our office there. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you at TICC. I guess we should give our email addresses as well.
So my email address, anybody want to send me an email, Chris, there it is, easy. Tommy's ahead of us. SamS@ha.com and crispy@ha.com. Hello to London, and we'll see you in London again soon. We were just in London this weekend. We have our new gallery. Sarah Balby is our managing director. So if you're in London, come in to see us. Hanover Square, 10 Hanover Street.
Yeah.
Lovely location up there in High Mayfair. You will have a good time, with visiting and picking up your lots, delivering your consignments, whatever you need. Sarah and team will be there for you.
Yeah.
So
all right.
with that,
we will see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.